Like, what are some specific insights that you could give someone that's trying to improve the social welfare of their own community and trying to, let's say they come from a deprived neighborhood or, they just don't have as much opportunity and they're trying to get ahead in life. What are some specific gems of philosophy that you could give them to kind of help them on their journey?
So part of the problem here is that the specifics do depend on the situation on the ground, right? So it's hard to give a general advice to somebody because the answers are going to depend on who that person is, what their resources are, what their community is, and what the opportunities are might or may not be available, et cetera, et cetera. So giving specific advice is something you can do, but only once you know enough about the specifics. However, there is.
I'm sorry, but I
Yeah,
would just say it's more
sure.
about like what should they do internally for their character.
Right. Yeah. So there is some advice you can give. On the other hand, in terms of sort of way of looking at things. In my mind, the single most useful piece of advice that comes from Stoicism, I've actually already mentioned it when I mentioned the Serenity Prayer.
Mm-hmm.
That piece of advice, in fact, as I said, comes from Stoicism. It's applied by Christianity. You find it in Judaism, and you also find it in Buddhism, which means that there's lots of people around the world that kind of recognize that this is a good idea. The Stoics refer to it as the fundamental rule,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes from Epictetus, a second century Stoic who incidentally was a slave. He grew up in fact, the name, we don't know his real name. The name Epictetus just means acquired because he was bought. We don't actually know what his real name was. He was from what we today refer to as Western Turkey. And then it was brought to Rome. Eventually, he was given his freedom and he started teaching. He studied and then started teaching Stoic philosophy. And he actually became one of the most successful and famous teachers of the second century. Epictetus talks to his students. We have a couple of his books. And in his books, he talks to his students about what he calls the fundamental rule. And basically says, look, everything you do, no matter what it is, remember, some things are up to you, other things are not up to you. And a good life is the result of focusing where your agency lies, in other words, what you can actually do, and at the same time developing an attitude of equanimity and acceptance for the things that you do not control, that are not in fact up to you. So every time you face something, always ask yourself, what here now is up to me and what is not up to me? Let me give you an example, again, using this conversation we're having. So walking, I do interviews and conversations like this all the time. Every time that I do that, I walk into a place and I remind myself, okay, what here is up to me? What's up to me is to be as focused as possible when you guys are asking me questions. Actually pay attention, not looking at my phone or not staring out of the window, that sort of stuff, or not daydreaming. Be focused. Trying to be as clear as I can be. Try to be as helpful in terms of using actual examples and stuff like that. Those things are up to me. What is not up to me is the kinds of questions you're going to ask me. I have no idea, right? For walking here, I had a vague idea, but not really, right? What is not up to me is how the whole thing is going. I mean, the conversation may be going well or may not be going well. That depends on the interaction between us, which is not entirely up to me. I can only control my side of the equation, certainly not yours, right? Ideally, I would like this thing that's being recorded and eventually is going to be published and all that sort of stuff to be seen by a lot of people and a lot of people to think about. But that's not up to me, right? It's all I can do is all that really is up to me is my performance, so to speak, my focus, my attention to what is happening, and so on and so forth. So the idea that Epictetus is developing, therefore, is that this applies to everything. Everything you want to do, a job interview, an exam at school, a relationship with your loved ones, or trying to make a difference in your community. Everything. It really literally applies from the small things to the big ones. in every case, there's always a distinction between what's up to you and what's not up to you. And according to Epictetus, the mistake that we always make, that we often make, is to focus on what is not actually up to us. Mm-hmm. Right? For instance, let me give you an example. Let's say you go out for a job interview. Right? What comes natural if you're preparing for a job interview is to be concerned about whether you're going to get the job or not. Right? Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, after all, that's why you're doing the interview in the first place. You want the job. But of course, Epictetus would say, getting the job, it's not up to you. Right. Right? It depends on the interviewer. It depends on the competition that you have. You know, who else is applying for a job. It depends on even the psychological state of the interviewer. Like, you know, did he get up in the morning and, you know, maybe he was upset with his wife, and so now he's going to be nasty while asking questions to you, but maybe he's not going to be nasty later to somebody else, and so your interview is going to go badly with no fault of your own. Right? What can you then do? Where should you focus? Well, preparing for the interview as well as possible. That is up to you, right? So doing your research about, you know, what company it is, and et cetera, et cetera. Decide that it's a good idea to try to get a good night's sleep before the interview, because that way you're going to be refreshed. Mm-hmm. Now notice, you can decide that it's a good idea to have a good night's sleep. You cannot decide, it's not up to you whether you actually have a good night's sleep. Mm-hmm. Because maybe there's going to be, you know, a party around the corner and, you know, until 5 o'clock in the morning, and you're not going to be able to sleep. So what is up to you is your decision that I need to do whatever it is possible to get a good night's sleep. Mm-hmm. Whether you actually get a good night's sleep, it's not up to you. What is up to you is the idea that you should be trying to show up on time for the interview, right? But whether you actually show up on time, that's not up to you. Maybe it snows and the subways are blocked, or they're delayed, or, you know, you can't, so you get up plenty of time, but you're still going to be late for the interview. That sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Once you start getting into this way of thinking about things, it really applies to everything, and you feel like you are much more in control, precisely because you're focused on the things that you actually can do, mm-hmm. as opposed to what we typically do, being worried about the kind of stuff that we can't actually do anything about.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. It's very important to you know, just focus on what you can, and disregard what you can't.
I feel like sometimes though it's human instinct maybe to like focus, like for instance in your example about the job interview, like it would be human instinct to like focus on the fact that, oh, like I hope I get the job and stuff like that, you know.
But all that does is take away from like what you can do.
Right.
So.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. You get upset,
right,
or you get unfocused because you're actually paying attention to the wrong things.
Yeah.
Or give you yet another example. You go to the airport and they cancel your flight. Mm-hmm. So most people say, start focusing on the consequences, right? Oh, now I'm going to get late for my appointment tomorrow morning, blah, blah. Yeah, but you cannot do anything about that, right? Mm-hmm. What you can do is to get on your airline's app and immediately reschedule your flight. Right. That's what you can do. Mm-hmm. That's what you should be focusing on. And once you've done that, instead of just start getting upset about the fact that now you're 6 hours late or something like that, just relax, go to the bar, have a drink, and start reading a book, you know, catch up with work, do whatever it is that it's actually useful, as opposed to brooding about the stuff or getting upset or getting angry, you know. I've seen a lot, I travel a lot, and I've seen a lot of people who get really angry at the agent behind the desk.
Because they're forced.
So they're not doing
it's not their fault, and they can't do anything about it. So all you're doing is to take your rage on a human being, which it's a non-Stoic thing to do, first of all, because you're not treating that person justly. Right? You're not treating them with respect and all that sort of stuff, right? So that, number one, you should never do that in the first place. But it's also useless because, look, that person doesn't want anything other than get the people out of there. That's his job. He doesn't want to have to deal with that kind of thing. So it's not like he's doing it on purpose.
Right. Mm-hmm, definitely. But yeah, I think this was a